Hi everybody, this is the Baseball Fight, the amazing, spectacular, terrific, the great one, the People's Champion, your host, the Hut. Welcome back to the Baseball Hut 2, and hopefully you like this video and hit that subscribe button. I'm talking about free agency here. And one player in particular, that's Kyle Schwarber. Philadelphia Phillies slugger's been there quite a few years. With the Cubs, the Nationals, the Red Sox. Well, he's a free agent again. Now, this was a free agency that was a successful deal throughout because he hit great. He's a great home run hitter. Keeps up at this pace. He's going to the Hall of Fame. But the Phillies and Schwarber, it seems like people have felt, and I felt this as well, that he's going to resign with the Phillies. But there's a little snag. And what that snag is, who knows? Probably the length of the contract. Because he is up there. He's 33 years old. Some MLB trade rumors. Phillies Kyle Schwarber currently not close to a deal. There's been plenty of mutual interest between the Phillies and Kyle Schwarber, leading to a sense around the league that Schwarber's free agent path will ultimately lead him back to the city of brotherly love. It doesn't appear, however, that a reunion is imminent. As MLB.com's Todd Zalecki wrote earlier this week, two sides are not close to a deal. Zalecki didn't specify if there has been any standstill in talks, or if there's a sizable gap between the two sides in terms of money or contract length. By that same measure, there's also nothing to indicate that talks couldn't heat up with a single phone call. All in all, the news should be construed as a sign that Schwarber won't eventually return, or that either party is favoring another option. It's only been a little over 3 weeks since the free agents have been allowed to negotiate with other teams, and most of the top names in the markets are still testing the waters. I would mention the future Hall of Fame Ryan Helsley had signed with the Baltimore Orioles. Why did they do that? We'll never know. But that is not a sign that you're serious about winning. A couple of the most prominent early signings, Josh Nails to the Mariners, Raisel Iglesias to the Braves, then involved players quickly opting to re-up with their former teams, which perhaps raised hopes among Philadelphia fans that a new deal of Schwarber might also resolve in rapid fashion. A little over 2 years ago, Aaron Nola entered the free agency, but then worked out a 7-year, $172 million deal with the Phillies in just a couple of weeks of the market opening. That's turned out to be not a great deal for the Phillies because obviously he pitched a lot. He's been hurt. As Zalecki simply puts it, there's no reason to rush it for Schwarber's camp at this point, given how much interest the sluggers generated in the wake of his 56 home run season. The Red Sox, Orioles, and surprisingly the Pirates have all been publicly linked to Schwarber's market thus far. I would be shocked if the Pirates signed him. Plus, the Reds have been mentioned as a speculative contender since they need help hitting, and Schwarber's from the Cincinnati area. The only players entering at age 33 season don't usually command the kind of attention Schwarber is garnering. But then again, Schwarber's career year is just one of 23 seasons, 56-plus home runs in baseball history. The fact that Schwarber is essentially the Phillies' top priority, give or take JT Realmuto, gives the slugger added leverage. He and his agents can likely afford to wait and see what other offers emerge, with the comfort of knowing that the Phillies might well match or top whatever rival offer is put on the table. From the Phillies' perspective, they will likely wait on Schwarber before proceeding with any other major offseason business. Apart from matters that wouldn't be impacted by Schwarber staying or leaving, for example, negotiating with Realmuto, trying to trade Nick Castellanos, or perhaps looking for bullpen help. Dave Dombrowski, forever looking for bullpen help. Can never find it. There's some risk for the Phillies in that if Schwarber signed elsewhere after taking several more weeks, the Phillies could be left behind in their offseason shopping if other free agents have already left the market. That said, rival agents are also aware of the scenario and could advise their clients to wait on their own decisions just in case a Schwarber-less Phillies team suddenly broadens its free agent horizon. But this is the thing. He's a left-handed power hitter. He's a DH pretty much. He'll play a little left field from time to time, a little bit of first. But, his market's not going to be that big, But, he's going to be commanding a lot of money because he's a big home run hitter. He's one of the top 4 home run hitters in the game. So, we'll see where he goes. His market is not going to affect the rest of the market. That's for sure, because he's limited in what he can do. But the things that he does is so great. And he's a winning player. He's a good player. Aside from the home runs, he's a winning player. He's always in places where teams win. That's something you can't, underscore. So, thank you for watching this video. Of course, please subscribe to Baseball Hut 2, and I'll see you later. All right, everybody, this is the Baseball Hut, the amazing, spectacular, terrific, the great one, the people's champion. Your host, and welcome back to the Baseball Hut. Hopefully you like this video. Hit that subscribe button. So we got a whole bunch of rumors for you that the Mets involved. All these different players come from the same place, Jeff Passan. But before we get into that video, again, let's go over real quickly about Francisco Lindor. I'm a Met fan like you. I want the Mets to win. That's all I care about. We don't need this bickering back and forth about the title of the video or the tone of the video. And I welcome everybody in here to come to watch the videos. A lot of people left over the last video. Well, I'm sorry, but when your team has a collapse like the Mets had, everything has to be scrutinized. Everything has to be examined. What happened? What happened in that clubhouse, it spoke volumes about what was going on, and it really hurt them later on in the season. So that's why I've been talking about this the last few videos, because I thought it was very important to talk about it. Because we need to find out and make sure this never happens again. I'm tired of this. It's the third time in my life I've seen this happen with this franchise. We don't want to see it happen again. And if you don't examine every player and scrutinize every player that's involved in it, then it's going to happen again. If they don't do the right thing here, it will happen again. It has to stop. And I don't need people bickering with me and complaining to me about this or that. Saying I'm not much of a Met fan. Look, it's about the name on the front, not the name on the back. Simple as that. And I also would mention some of the things that have been said about some of the players a little over the line. Some of the things that have been said about Soto and Lindor. It's not personal with me. I don't know why they're making it personal with me and with the players. Either play well, they do well, or get him out of here. Simple as that. If Lindor can't carry it, let's got to find a way to move him. Same thing with Soto at some point in the future. I'm just putting it out there. Okay? 5 years of the Mets, spend a lot of money and they haven't won anything. So that's why it's so important to figure out what happened this season. But now they're trying to move on to 2026. And here we have from Jeff Passan, the big MLB insider. He says the Mets are in the mix for Schwarber, which I did a video on him earlier, Framber Valdez, and Kyle Tucker. ESPN baseball reporter Jeff Passan warmed up the hot stove Monday and had the Mets involved in free agent rumors for Kyle Tucker, Kyle Schwarber, Cody Bellinger, and Framber Valdez. He also has Jeff McNeil likely on the way out via trade. Well, we kind of knew that about McNeil. But this thing about Schwarber was something new, which is great to see. Passan says Schwarber, the 32-year-old DH, who had 56 homers and drove in 132, while finishing second in the MVP voting, might be the likeliest of the big free agents to sign first. The baseball winter meetings start in 6 days. They're saying that he might sign before or during the winter meetings. Unclear if something gets done before the winter meetings, but I'd be surprised if they end and he doesn't have a team. Passan wrote on Threads, the Phillies are the favorites to land Schwarber, but the Mets, Red Sox, Reds, and others remain involved. I've heard the Pirates, which I don't believe. Tucker, and this is unbelievable. He said, I don't know if he's a Scott Boras player, but he may not sign until 2026. That's nonsense. You want to sign now. Sign before Christmas, dude. At the end of the day, nobody can make a team better than like Tucker. Whether it's Toronto, Philadelphia, either New York team, or perhaps one that misses out on the rest of the top players in the class. Tucker's price will be met, and he'll get a 10-year plus deal for more than $300 million, with an even higher ceiling possible. I'm gonna say this: he's good, but he's not Juan Soto. He's good, but he's not that good. He has won a lot, so the Yankees want to keep Bellinger, but Trent Grissom accepting the qualifying offer has complicated things. Well, why did these assholes in the Bronx offer it to him? They should just let him walk. According to the past, the Yankees have a logjam in the outfield. Mets, Dodgers, Phillies, and others may look to pry him out of the Bronx. Like Schwarber, he may be among the earliest. So that's good. I think we're gonna see some activity this week. I would hope. He also said Valdez, always the best pitcher and starter this offseason, is a fit for the Mets, and that a Tarek Skubal trade is looking exceedingly unlikely. Then Passan characterized a dozen players by their likeness to be traded. Now the thing about Framber Valdez, he's left-handed, he's 32 years old. He's won a lot. He is a true ace. He would certainly settle the Mets rotation down, and they need that. I would also mention they could use another starter after that, too, from outside. Possibly do a trade or whatever. They probably won't go. This is the pitchers that aren't going to get traded. Freddie Peralta, Hunter Green, Byron Buxton, Stephen Kwan. Will they be traded? Ketel Marte, at the bar beware, Jaron Duran, Joe Ryan, Pablo Lopez. And where will they go? Brendan Donovan, Luis Robert Jr., Jeff McNeil, Nolan Arenado. I don't think Robert Jr. is going to get traded. Any team picking him up will be crazy to do so. I don't think the Mets are being on him because they re-signed Tyrone Taylor. I did want to get somebody who's a little bit more with the Harrison Bader type. Regarding incumbent NL reliever of the year, Edwin Diaz, Passan notes that the 31-year-old will wind up with the heftiest deal of fellow back-end relievers, all be written, Robert Suarez, Pete Fairbanks, and Devin Williams. Another free agent Met Passan discusses his slugging first baseman Pete Alonso. And I get this, folks, about Pete. Get this. Pete had a career year and likely gone to the contract to back that up. Now, he's waiting for a team to step to the forefront. That's like last year. No team's going to give him a lot of years. They proved it last year. Any team could have gotten him for a good price, and he would have taken it. No team did that other than the Mets. If he thinks he's going to get a 7-year deal, that's pie in the sky with diamonds and rubies. Not going to happen. Not going to happen. Pete better prepare himself to come back to the Mets because that's probably what's going to wind up happening. So the Mets said they want him back, but to go back with some of these other guys, Framber Valdez has been mentioned. Hector Gomez mentioned him. Now we got a real credible guy mentioning Valdez with the Mets. Mets need a true ace to take pressure off of Nolan McLean, settle this rotation down to where you know this guy's going to go 6, 7, 8 innings. The fact that this group cannot go more than 4 innings was a problem, and it's part of the reason why they collapsed. Not the primary reason, but many, many reasons. Kyle Tucker, Cody Bellinger, I kind of look at them in the same category. Athletic outfielder who has power, is good defensively. The only difference between the two of them is where is Tucker going to play here? Tucker's been a right fielder. Is he going to play right field here? That means they'll move one starter to the left. And Bellinger can play all outfield positions, including center field, really well, and as well as first base. So he has a lot of versatility in terms of where he can play, unlike Tucker, who's just an outfielder. And Schwarber is a apex home run hitter. He's at the top of that list. 56 home runs. He got over 300 home runs. He's got a very good chance of getting 500 home runs in his career. I didn't think the Mets would be in on him, but they're in the mix. So they bring him in here. He'll be the DH, I would think. Maybe once in a while play the outfield, but primarily be the DH here. So I guess he'd be a little bit of insurance in case the Mets lose Pete Alonso. And if they don't lose Pete at first, a little bit, and they can kind of share the DH spot a little bit here and there. But the one thing about Tucker, Schwarber, and Bellinger and Framber Valdez, something that most of the Mets don't have in terms of just regular players and star players, all of these guys have won. They've all won a World Series, each one of them. Kyle Tucker with the Astros, Kyle Schwarber with the Cubs, Cody Bellinger with the Dodgers, and of course, Valdez with the Astros. It is extremely important to bring in guys that know what it takes to win. Okay? Very, very important to have players that can do that. And I think that's part of the reason why they brought in Semien too, is that he has won at the highest level. Because then it shows you guys are capable of doing it once before they could do it again, maybe somewhere else. So I'm happy with some of the names I've heard over the last week or so of who the Mets are talking to. I mean, really, since they traded Nimmo, they said they were going to open up, all these different possibilities for themselves, which is probably the smart thing. And I would agree, and you would agree with me, that Schwarber is a much, much better player than Brandon Nimmo. Bellinger's a better player than Brandon. He's won MVP. And, of course, Tucker's a much better player than Brandon. So if they can improve on that and hopefully improve the clubhouse dynamic to some degree, and then improve the pitching, that's going to go a long way. And again, I would sort of say that the pitching is the most important thing. You bring in Valdez, it calms down the rotation. Then maybe you look to see if you can make a trade for another starter that is a guy that can give you multiple innings. And then from there on, you can figure out who the closer is and who's going to be playing first. And who's going to be who's going to be in that outfield. So, but the number one thing they have to do is figure out what bat they want in this offense. That's an improvement over Brandon Nimmo. All these three guys we mentioned here, Tucker, Schwarber, and Cody Bellinger, are all improvements over Brandon Nimmo. And I would say that Semien is an improvement over Jeff McNeil. So, right off the bat, you're a much better team, but you have to figure out what you want to do with Pete. But you let me know what you think about this video. And, of course, can't we all get along? So you come in here and leave comments. Just don't fight with me, because I don't have the patience for it. And there's no reason to. It's not that important. This stuff's not that important. But thank you for watching this video. Please subscribe to the Baseball Hut. I'll see you later. What's next for the New York Mets after signing first baseman designated hitter Jorge Polanco? Well, first of all, he's not a very good defensive infielder overall in certain spots. He gives up a lot of runs defensively, but primarily he's going to be a designated hitter here. And from looking at his numbers from his offensive side, he is a very good hitter with men in scoring position. He's got a 300-plus batting average with men in scoring position. That is huge because the Mets was so bad this past year, so that is a key. So who could the Mets be targeting now? Keep your eyes still on Cody Bellinger because they need another outfielder. And Kazuma Okamoto, who is a player that Mets have about 3 weeks to figure out if they want to sign him. And all the other teams have time to figure out that too. Also keep an eye on the trade market. Who could be coming in here because the Mets are heavily involved in the trade talks. So thank you for watching. Hit the subscribe button. Follow me on Facebook. Hi everybody, this is the Baseball Hut, the amazing, spectacular, terrific, the great one, the People's Champion, your host, the Hut, and welcome back to another visit to the insane asylum known as WFAN.
They're coming to take me away, ha-ha. They're coming to take me away, ho-ho, hee-hee, ha-ha, to the funny fun.
Now, welcome back to the Baseball Hut 3, and hopefully you like this video. And hit that subscribe button. So we are back here talking about the poor fellows at WFAN, Brandon Tierney and Sal Licata. And I've done a lot of videos at WFAN. Now, somebody questioned my motives about why I'm doing the videos. Like, what's motivating me? Well, first of all, a lot of views, a lot of hours coming in here, and the possibility of getting this channel monetized. So that's the motivation. If you don't know, and nobody else is talking about it, and I think it's kind of interesting. Just need to talk about it. And there's always drama at these radio stations, too. So some people don't realize that radio is the most unstable of all the medium, because guys need to be fired just like that. And we're at the end of the year, and a couple guys got fired, and that's Sal Licata and Brandon Tierney, a.k.a. the Spaz and the Coconut Head. You figure out which is which, because they're both bald, and they're being replaced by another bald guy. And Craig Carton, what WFAN's press release called the Icon. And, of course, we emphasize the con because he's a convicted convict. He's in federal prison for grifting people and tax evasion, all kinds of crazy shit. But he is coming back to WFAN, coming back to the nervous hospital because he really couldn't make it out on his own. Just like that poor guy in the Shawshank Redemption, he was institutionalized and he has to return. And of course, they're bringing him back because they feel like he's going to bring in better ratings. And of course, if a program director thinks that you can bring $1 more into the pocket of the radio station, they'll fire you in a second. Now, the BT and Sal show was pretty decent. They were doing pretty good work. They were building an audience, but they had the rug pulled on underneath them because they got to bring back this icon and Craig Carton. And they had their final show on Friday. This is the Spaz and the Coconut Head. They had their final show on Friday. And it got very sad, I guess, at times. And this is from Awful Announcing. They cover all this stuff. Headline, Brandon Tierney, Sal Licata deliver final sign-off from WFAN. Keep moving forward. Quote, it's not about how many times you can get hit. It's about how many hits you can take and keep moving forward. Now, this is obviously a line from one of the Rocky movies, Rocky Balboa, which people really love that movie. I love that movie myself. Sal Licata and Brandon Tierney, a.k.a. the Spaz and the Coconut Head, got quite a lump of coal in their stockings this holiday season when they got word that their midday show on WFAN was going to be canceled as the icon Craig Carton gets set to make yet another return to the station. You know, think WFAN would have put it out there that he was a legend, radio legend. No, they put him out that he's an icon. I think they realized that was something kind of amusing. Well, the hosts have stated that they did have advance notice that Carton could soon be back on the fan. It is no easy thing to lose a dream job. There are only so many hours in the day for the legendary New York City sports station to program, and the Con is a big star. He's mid-tier. It's not Mike and the Mad Dog. He's mid-tier. Fortunately for Tierney and Licata, their strong work and professionalism gave them a chance to keep hosting through Friday when they signed off for the final time. So in other words, if there was a problem behind the scenes where they were complaining or got word leaked out, they weren't going to get this final show. And of course, Spaz is not going to be there this next week. He's gone. His last show was on Friday. In the last moments of the show, Licata recalled words of wisdom from his father, gave thanks to WFAN leadership, and asked the audience to follow him and the Coconut Head as they go forward in their careers. Quote, life is going to keep hitting you hard and try to take you down to your knees. Licata said, it's not about how many times you get hit, it's about how many hits you can take and keep moving forward. Now, is his father Rocky Balboa? And it's not a knock on the fan or whatever. It's just life in general. So I'm ready to take this hit, and just like that, I've taken many hits before. I'm going to keep moving forward. Now, I'm going to give you a little word of advice from my father, old manhood. Write it down. It's very important. Write it down. You'll never forget this. It's simple. This is words of advice, and you can use this. This is good. This is good stuff. When I was a kid, the first Mets game I ever went to, we took the 7 train going to Shea Stadium. Mets were bad then. Nobody on the train other than this homeless guy that was sleeping on one of the seats. And I was a little kid watching, looking at him. And write it down. This is very important. Old man Hud says to me, don't stare at the bum. And that's lasted me my whole life. It's the greatest words of advice I can give anybody. I can give it to a kid, I can give it to anybody. Friends, it is very important not to stare at the bums. Don't rub a neck, don't stare at the bums. It's great advice, perfect advice. And that's the advice I give to anybody that loses a job, loses a friend, or gets their heart broken. Don't stare at it. It's perfect. Perfect. With Tierney set to appear on the station a few more times in the coming days, he largely allowed the Spaz to have the final word. The two grew emotional as the show ended, But these future work together. Well, they should be back together. This show was not a failure. Okay. They got a lot of people talking about it, and they caught my attention by the way they were ripping into the Mets 2 years ago, in particular Pete Alonso, and the way they went after Carl Banks, who holds no animus towards them. Quote, it's an end for this chapter of the show on this station, which we love very much and very appreciative of, Licata's added. A lot of shows that are no longer going to be on don't get this opportunity, so that is not lost on me. I guess what he means is the final show. Thank you to all the bosses for allowing us to finish, having the opportunity to have a goodbye show and all of that stuff. Usually, a lot of times, behind the scenes, if you get fired, these guys make a big deal out of it, obviously. And like I said, this was not a failed show. It had a following. It was building. In closing, the Spaz resolved that he was immensely proud of the work he did with Tierney and their fortitude in the face of the Carton News this month. Licata began as an intern at the station more than 2 decades ago, and working his way up to a full-time midday host in recent years. Jumping to a different city or even a different platform would be a big change. He should stay in New York and build a platform on another platform. Get away from the radio. That is a dead and dying way to communicate. I'm starting to wonder how well the radio is doing. Because, without certain people on the radio anymore on a regular basis, all these old timers on there, who's going to, it's different kind of audience. It's an older audience. You want to tap into the younger audience on the internet in particular, like YouTube, X, Facebook. You want to be able to go to different places. And I would mention again, like I said in other videos, Spaz Licata and Brandon Tierney, the Coconut Head, they helped build the channel on YouTube, the WFAN YouTube channel, with their live streams and their cuts and all this other stuff. I don't think they ever got any extra money. Because they turn off the chats, they don't make any money off the super chats. All channels that are independent get. They didn't get anything. In closing, Licata resolved that he was immensely proud of the work he did with Tierney and their fortitude to face the con news, the icon news this month. Licata, we already talked about that. I just wanted to say that icon part. Tierney has a more wide-ranging background, having worked in Northern California and Pennsylvania and hosted on television. Tierney's going to land on his feet. He's been at ESPN. He's been on TV on ESPN. He's going to be fine. But Sal Licata needs to build his own way. And I would give him advice in this, and that's not to stare at the bums, is build your own audience, get to a point where WFN at some point begs you to come back. That's it. Simple as that. Build an audience on because YouTube's the future, Facebook's the future in terms of just building a platform. You're better off. And then you control your own boss and all that. You want to get to a point where you're your own boss. Simple as that. Going forward, uneven Evan Roberts and his supposed marriage to husband and Tiki Barber. Let me say this again. Going forward, uneven Evan Roberts and his husband Tiki Barber will host middays with WFAN while Carton slides into the afternoon drive slot. The people that run this radio station still do this sort of the shock jock, formula. Bring in a guy that says crazy stuff. He has all these connections to the complete total degenerates in the industry. You bring them in, you do all this crazy stuff. But the reality is, you feel bad for these two guys because they had a solid show. It wasn't like the show was failing. There have been other shows in the midday that failed over the last few years. This one was not a failure. And they did a good job. And they should just go independent and stay away from radio and stay away from WFAN. Like I said, you want to get to a point where WFAN comes back to you and says, we want you back. And at that point, you try to get as much money out of them as possible, or you say, pound sand. Now, of course, this is another video, and like I said, the things that motivate me to do these videos, you will like watching them. I'm bringing in a lot of subscribers, bringing in hopefully immense amount of money once it gets monetized. And I need an alternative for next year in case we have a baseball lockout. That's a possibility. So those are what my motivating factors here at the Baseball Hut. And to bring some fun here and And I'll have other things, to talk about when it comes to the media. But WFAN's been a major subject on this channel. So, and this, of course, is another visit to the insane asylum and the nurse hospital. And we send them off and wish them well. These two outpatients, they're no longer patients at the crazy place known as WFAN.
They're coming to take me away, ha-ha. They're coming to take me away, ho-ho, hee-hee, ha-ha, to the funny part.
Hi, everybody. This is the baseball event, the amazing, spectacular, terrific, the great one, the people's champion. Your host, and welcome back to the Baseball Hut 2. And hopefully you like this video. Hit that subscribe button. So, in this video, we're going to talk about all kinds of Major League Baseball rumors, trades, everything you can possibly have in a video. And, of course, we have sources here. And it's in 3 parts. So here's the first part. And this is from CBSSports.com. MLB rumors. Rangers not shopping Corey Seager. Diamondbacks add Merrill Kelly, which was news on Sunday. And Michael King sues emerge. I got plenty of stuff on Michael King in this video. Here are your hot stove rumors for Sunday, December 24th. Oh, 14th. I'm all right. Almost Christmas. 2025-26 MLB offseason, 6 weeks old. And so far, 21 of our top 50 free agents have signed. Our number 1 trade candidate has been dealt. Spring training is 2 months away, and there is still a lot of player movement to come. Between now and then, here and now are Sunday's hot stove happenings. I would mention, over 100 players are available through trade and through free agency. Trade, obviously, through rumors. Rangers not shopping Corey Seager. Rangers, Bigfoot. Rangers Bigfoot Corey, Chris Young, and he's a big guy. Chris Young's a big guy. He was a big guy, the biggest, tallest pitchers in the history of baseball. Rangers Bigfoot, the Rangers Yeti, Chris Young said flatly during an appearance on MLB Network Radio on Sunday that the team is not shopping Corey Seager. But the Rangers expect to cut payroll, or at least not raise it. Contenders have reportedly called Texas about Seager in recent weeks. 31-year-old two-time World Series MVP is owed $31 million a year for another 6 years. How about Lindor for Seager? How about that? You can parse Young's words and focus on the fact. Not shopping is not the same thing as not trading, though my guess is that this is just a function of a live radio interview. Every team listens to offers for every player every offseason. They wouldn't be doing their job if they didn't. The Rangers will listen on Seager. Does not mean they're eager to trade him, though. AL East teams pursuing Michael King. Free agent right-hander Michael King has 3 AL East teams chasing him. The Orioles, Red Sox, and the Yankees. Reports the Boston Globe. He declined the $22.025 qualifying offer. That's $1 million from the Padres early this offseason. Therefore, is attached to draft pick compensation, potentially affecting his market. They ranked him the 17th best free agent available this winter. King, who's 30, knows the AL East well for his time with the Yankees, who sent him the San Diego Juan Soto deal. He had a terrific 2024 that saw him finish 7th in the Cy Young Award voting in the National League. Shoulder and knee injuries derailed his 2025, though he's seen as something of a buy low candidate, especially since he's proven he can start or be an effective multi-inning setup man. Very careful with him if you're going to make a deal for him. He's any kind of signing. He's always hurt. Always hurt. Arizona's search for pitching has led them to a familiar face. Diamondbacks and Merrill Kelly are reunited on a 2-year contract for $400 million, reports The Athletic. Kelly, who's 37, had been with the Diamondbacks since 2019 before being traded to the Rangers for 3 prospects at this summer's deadline. Ranked him as the 27th best free agent available this offseason. Zach Gallen is a free agent and likely to return to the Diamondbacks, who will also be without Corbin Burns beginning of the season. Kelly will step into a rotation that includes the recently signed Michael Soroka and Ryan Nelson, Brandon Fout, I hope I said his name, and Eduardo Rodriguez. So he's just coming back home, pretty much. The front runners have emerged, but Brendan Donovan. The Giants and Mariners have emerged the front runner for Cardinals super utility guy, Brendan Donovan, reports The Athletic. St. Louis hopes to land multiple prospects and return most likely pitchers, given the team's needs. Cardinals are not prioritizing short-term wins, and Donovan, who's 28, 2 years away from free agency, doesn't line up the club's contention cycle. Second base is Donovan's best position. The Giants and Mariners both have openings at the Keystone, the latter after Jorge Polanco bolted for the Mets. Several teams interested in Robert. The Mets, Padres, and Pirates are among the teams with interest in White Sox center fielder Luis Robert Jr. The Chi Sox declined to trade Robert at the deadline and instead picked up his $20 million club option for 2026, hoping to get a better return in the offseason. Chances are Chicago will have to eat some of that money to facilitate a trade. He is one of these players, folks, that he's always hurt. He's had one really good year. The RBI total is always low. There's some questions about his attitude. I'm the New York Mets, stay away from him. He already had problems in the clubhouse, and he's been in a winning situation. Unless he's breaking his ass, running hard, going through walls, you stay away from that. Yankees interested in Romero. The Yankees are among the teams with interest in Cardinals lefty reliever Jojo Romero, reports the St. Louis Post-Dispatch. Romero, who is 29, is a year away from free agency, making it likely St. Louis will move him this offseason. The Cardinals are going to move everybody. Everybody that's not like nailed down. They're moving. Next up in this video is the San Francisco Giants, who've been very quiet this year and this offseason. Obviously they made the big trade in the early part of the season when they brought in Rafael Devers, and now the rumor is today that the Giants are interested in Cody Bellinger. This is from MLB Trade Rumors. It's been a pretty quiet offseason so far in the Bay Area. Where did we hear that before? A second ago. Well, the Giants have at least been linked to several notable trade candidates and free agents. The Giants, the San Francisco Chronicle's Susan Slusser adds another big name to the list, writing that the Giants have checked in on Cody Bellinger. While Bellinger's ability to play first base probably wouldn't be a factor for a team with Rafael Devers and Bryce Eldridge lined up for first base DH duties, Bellinger would slot perfectly into the Giants' vacancy in right field. San Francisco could also slide Bellinger into left or center on occasion, depending on how Elliott, Ramos, and Jung-Ho Lee are deployed. Bellinger is more of a serviceable center field candidate than a true regular, but he is a strong defender in the corners. His work as a left fielder and right fielder for the Yankees in 2025, plus 15 defensive runs saved and plus 6 outs above average. I don't see this happening at all. I'm going to be honest, because he is not a good fit there. They need a right-handed hitter in that lineup. And they have a young first baseman. It doesn't make any sense. I'm surprised. And the article does say that they've checked in. So that means that they've talked to him, they've asked him what he's looking for, asked the agent what he's looking for. This is that. It's not going to happen. One of the favorite lines I get from people online, it's not going to happen. It's not happening. It's not happening. If it happens, I'm a monkey's uncle. And finally in this video, we're going to talk about the Red Sox, the Boston Red Sox. And apparently they have a very strong interest in Michael King. I mentioned him earlier in this video, and he has a very strong interest in playing for them. This is from NESN.com. The Boston Red Sox could make their first big free agent splash the offseason by signing Michael King. Mass Live's Chris Cotillo reported Sunday that King has strong interest in playing for Boston. However, Cotillo also noted that there's a crowded field of suitors for the starting pitcher and Rhode Island native, also from the area. If the Red Sox don't sign him, King could instead join a division rival. Peter Abraham of the Boston Globe reported the New York Yankees and Baltimore Orioles are also vying for the right-hander's services. The American League East teams hope he'll decide soon. I would mention that the offseason, what a drag this offseason. Every offseason in the last few years has been such a drag. These guys take forever to decide where to go. Used to be that the players always wanted to get this stuff out of the way before Christmas, before New Year's. King began his career in the Yankees bullpen before moving to the rotation late in the 2023 season. The success intrigued the San Diego Padres enough to make him a key piece in a blockbuster Juan Soto deal that offseason. The Boston College product excelled with the Padres in 2024, notching a 2.95 ERA and 201 strikeouts and 173 2/3 innings. King could have been poised for a massive payday had shoulder and knee injuries not limited him to 15 starts in 2025. Well, that's the issue with King. The guy is always hurt. That's really the major problem with King. He's got great stuff, but boy, he's always hurt. King pitched well when healthy, submitting a 3.44 ERA and 76 strikeouts in 73 and a third innings. He returned from a nearly 3-month hiatus to pitch 2 innings in an August 9th win over the Red Sox before returning to the injury list for another month. There are guys that just can't stay healthy. There are guys that are so talented, they always hurt. His stuff is so good, he's hurt. The injuries may cap the 30-year-old's price, but King still maintains ace upside that most teams covet. You get up the Red Sox posed a former rotation alongside Garrett Crochet, Sonny Gray, and Brian Bello in 2026. They need a guy that's going to fill at the bottom of the rotation. An innings eater, don't need an ace, they got an ace. They got pretty close to number 2 starter in Sonny Gray, and Bello's pretty good too. Red Sox need a bat. They missed out on Pete Alonso. They need a bat in that lineup. It's going to help them, and they need another starter. But the starter, you don't have to break the bank and then bring in a guy that's always hurt like Michael King. I wouldn't do that. Well, you let me know what you think about this video, and of course, please subscribe to Baseball Hut 2, and I'll see you later. Hi everybody, this is the Baseball Hut, the amazing, spectacular, terrific, the great one, the people's champion, your host, and welcome back to the Baseball Hut, and hopefully you like this video and hit that subscribe button. So, we have some rumors for you, and I know you've heard some of them, but you haven't gotten my take on a lot of stuff this past weekend. Also, would mention before we end this video, I'm on Facebook. I have a lot of followers on Facebook. We're close to 7,000 followers, and that account's really starting to click finally. But let's talk about what's going on with the Mets. And obviously, from what I understand and what I think, is I don't think they're going to be making any major signings. If they do, I'd be very surprised, to be honest with you. I know Cody Bellinger's still out there. That's the most obvious one out there. Maybe if they sign somebody, maybe it's one of these, maybe the Japanese first baseman, maybe. The Japanese market has been completely silent. Murakami's due to sign with some team. I don't think the Mets are in on him so much, but it's been very quiet, just across the board. But these rumors about the Padres are interesting, because it seems to be a match. And there's belief that this could happen in the next day or two, maybe the next few hours. We'll see. So I'm going to get this video out there. But this is from MLB Trade Rooms from a few days ago. Mets trade talks with Padres involving Nick Pivetta, Ramon Laureano, and Mason Miller. So this would be a major trade. You get Mason Miller. Now somebody wrote to me, well, why would the Padres trade him if they trade the second best prospect in baseball? Who knows? Who cares? If he's available, you go get him. Don't worry about the Padres' problems. This is A.J. Preller. He will trade anything that doesn't move and completely revamp the team before we get to spring training. I would mention, Francisco Lindor is not part of this, nor is Fernando Tatis Jr., and there are a lot of names involved. The Mets and Padres have been discussing the possibility of a trade that would send established talent to New York while San Diego obtained MLB-ready younger talent and some salary relief. According to the Athletics' Ken Rosenthal, a.k.a. the Munchkin, Dennis Lynn, and Will Salmon. I will say this about Will Salmon. He needs to get a better haircut. There's something wrong with that. Something up with that hair. Right-hander Nick Pivetta, outfielder Ramon Laureano, and star relievers Mason Miller, Adrian Morhone, and Jeremiah Strider are players of interest for New York. The Padres have shown interest in the Mets' young major leaguers and all of their top prospects, both pitchers and position players, including Nolan McLean, Brandon Sproat, and Jonah Tong. Now, Nolan McLean's not going anywhere. Two guys that are off the table is Nolan McLean and Carson Bench. Everybody else can be had. The Athletics report has made a point of noting that Francisco Lindor, Fernando Tatis Jr., and Jake Cronenworth weren't brought up in these negotiations. This only somewhat lessens the blockbuster potential here, given all of the high-profile names already under discussion. Though it's also possible that the talks remain somewhat exploratory in nature. As the Munchkin, Lynn, and Salmon note, San Diego president of baseball operations A.J. Preller always weighing a dizzyingly number of possible moves and contingency plans. And Mets baseball president of baseball operations, Dave Stearns, is likewise no stranger to major trade concepts. Now, Pivetta, go through what he has. He's got a 3-year, $55 million contract, which he's already played 1 year of. People have been complaining online, well, why did the Mets sign him last year? They didn't have to sign, have to trade him. He had a qualifying offer on his price tag, which meant that the Padres had to give a draft pick to Boston. So that's why the Mets did not bring him in. But to keep an eye on this, you want to keep an eye on this over the next few days. And the players to keep an eye on going back to the Padres is Tong, Sproat, Jet Williams, Will Watson, Jonathan Santucci. Guys like this could be on the move. And perhaps Ryan Clifford. Any number of players could be on the move. The Mets desperately need pitching. They desperately need another reliever in this bullpen. If they were to get a Mason Mill, that would be just tremendous. And where would you pitch him? You figure that out. I mean, the guy throws a 900 miles an hour. Try to get the most out of him. He's still very young. That's why the price tag's going to be very high. And, Pivetta could help the rotation, the middle of the rotation. Quality is there. And he has gotten better over the time. He was terrible in Philly. He got a little bit better in Boston, and he got really good last year. So he might be one of these late bloomers, one of these pitching lab kind of graduates. But this is some of the stuff that I'm looking at, and we're all looking at. Well, like I said, I'd be very surprised they make any kind of major move in terms of free agency. That's very much quiet. Also, Will Santa put out an article saying that Kodai Senga and Jeff McNeil might not be moved necessarily just to dump them. They want to get something back in return for them. So they weren't too happy about some of the offers they were getting for Kodai Senga in particular. But you let me know what you think about this video. We've got so much to go through with the Mets. The Mets did the right thing by letting Pete and Edwin Diaz go. I would mention both of them. They had contracts here. Pete Alonso had another year in his contract. He signed a 2-year deal with an opt-out. But he decided to opt out. He decided to leave. Same thing with Edwin Diaz. Just keep that in mind. Everybody getting upset about the front office. They signed contracts. Edwin Diaz had 2 more years on his contract. He opted out. He could have opted in. He didn't want to. He was already the highest paid reliever in baseball when he signed that contract. All about money. Don't let that fool you about them. I'll have something about them some point soon. But you let me know what you think about this video. Of course, we're on Facebook. I'm on Facebook. Please follow me on Facebook. Pretty simple at Baseball Hut. Just check me out. And, of course, on YouTube. And please check out the products that I have on the channel. And, of course, thank you for watching this video. Keep an eye on this Padres situation with the Mets. I think there'll be a trade, I think, before now and Christmas. So, thank you for watching this video, and I'll see you later. Hi, everybody. This is the Baseball Hut, the amazing, spectacular, terrific, the great one, the people's champion, your host, the Hut, and welcome back to the Baseball Hut 2. And hopefully you like this video and hit that subscribe button. As you know, there's been a lot of discussion about what's most important. I've talked a lot about this over the last week since the Mets have made all these major changes about what's more important, which is more devastating. Losing on the final day of the season or losing the players that contribute to losing on the final day of the season. I had posted a video on Facebook where a fan called the Michael Kay show. He's 59 years old. He's literally crying on the phone, saying that he gave away all his Mets gear to Goodwill, gave his cups to his son-in-law. God help his daughter. There are more important things in life than worrying about what millionaire players are making. And not caring, I would mention, Pete Alonso had a contract with the New York Mets for 2026. Edwin Diaz had a contract with the New York Mets for 2026. They decided to go to the free agent market again. They signed the opt-out. The Mets signed the opt-out, but they could have stayed. They didn't want to stay. They wanted to leave. Well, this core, as an aside, that's just as an aside. But this whole situation with the core has been a major issue, at least from my point of view, for about 3-4 years. I've been very annoyed that this group had been together a long time and they hadn't won anything. And I'm like one of the few people that'll say that this core was rotten. because they're a bunch of losers. Well, it seems like somebody who has been with the Mets a long time is sort of saying sometimes you got to shake it up. This is a core that needed to be shaken up a long time ago, and they just kept holding on. And a lot of it had to do with the fact that there was a lot of sort of instability at the top of the front office, instability with ownership, a lot of sort of issues here. And, sometimes you don't want to get rid of players that are sticking around, that putting in good work, but if they're not winning, that's not success. So this from SI, and I watched this on Friday. Ex-Mets manager gets honest about team's roster shakeup. Former Mets manager Terry Collins believed the team needed to change things up. Well, he's right on. And this is a guy that managed the 2015 team that was struggling to hit. And he said, I'm going to play the guys that are going to hit, and that's it. If you veteran players don't like it, too bad. He told Lucas Duda right to his face, if you're not hitting, you're not going to play. The former New York Mets manager knew things needed to change after the disastrous 2025 season. On Friday's episode, Baseball Night in New York and SNY, former Mets manager Terry Collins believed the roster shakeup was needed for the Amazons, despite parting ways with 3 cornerstone pieces to this offseason. And of course, Brandon Nimmo got traded to the Texas Rangers, which was initiated by the Rangers. The Rangers wanted them, liked them a lot. Quote, the score has not won, Collins said. Quote, maybe it's time to go with a different core. There's a time where I don't know if Carlos was involved. But you need to say, look, we need to make some changes here. Now, they also got rid of the entire coaching staff on Mendoza. Mendoza is put on notice. The whole organization is put on notice that if you don't win, we're going to let you walk. Goodbye. And that's what this says. That this is what I talk about when I talk about accountability. Accountability is not just, firing the manager, firing the general manager at a whim's, at a whim. This has been going on since 2017. Terry Collins was here a long time. He was here a long time, 7 years. It's had tremendous stability. You can't have the constant influx of people, then you can't come up with no stability here. And it hasn't been for a long time, since he left. But anyway, quote, I think Dave Stearns, I spent some time with him. He's a sharp guy and he's got a plan. Make no mistake about it. But it's all those kids they're going to run out there. Good luck, he added. That's going to be the issue. And one of the things that needs to be addressed is how do they complement these younger players with this want to win and get the postseason? Because they said they're going to try to have a playoff team. They did that 2 years ago. They did that in 2024. It's certainly been a tumultuous offseason so far for the Mets. It started with the ball club trading their longest tenured player, Brandon Nimmo, to the Texas Rangers on November 23rd for infielder Marcus Semien. That was really what people, once they did that, all bets were off. You knew that this core was going to get broken up. New York then saw its all-star closer Edwin Diaz sign a 3-year, $69 million deal with the Los Angeles Dodgers on December 9th, which, again, he opted out of his contract that he had with the Mets for 2 more years. Followed by their homegrown first baseman and all-time home run leader Pete Alonso signed a 5-year, $155 million contract with the Baltimore Orioles less than 24 hours later. Again, he said, and people asked him, are you opting out on the last day of the season? He said, I'm opting out. That's their choice. You want to leave? You take your chances on the market. The Mets will now have a very different-looking team in 2026 after entering last year with championship aspirations. As part of the team's overhaul, they signed reliever Devin Williams to a 3-year, $51 million contract to be their closer, and recently added veteran infielder Jorge Polanco, who's reportedly set to play first base and be a DH. Regardless of how well, though, and he's a switch hitter, regardless of how well those two have performed in the past, it will be tough to replace the gaping holes left by both Alonso and Diaz. Well, they're going to have to find it. It's all about starting pitching, too. While seeing Nimmo, Diaz, and Alonso all depart in less than a month is a very tough pill for Mets fans to swallow, Collins seems to understand why Stearns is shaking up the roster. Mets have made 2 playoff appearances only twice since 2016. Keep that in mind. 2022 and 2024, with those 3 on the roster, and their only deep run in October came during that magical 2024 season, which saw the Amazons reach the NLCS for the first time since 2015. Change may have been inevitable for the Mets roster, especially after their 3.5-month collapse last year. Despite this roster shakeup, there's still plenty of all-season left for Stearns and the Mets front office to go back a contender. I expect them to make a major trade very soon. Probably with the Padres to get some pitching help in here. They need another starter in here. They need some bullpen help. They're looking at all the bullpen arms in San Diego. They have a lot of depth there. And the Mets have young players that they can move, young position players, young pitching. Mets have a ton of talent in their farm system that they can make a trade like that and still have players that can contribute in 2026 and beyond. But this team had been together a long time. And unfortunately, this is something that needed to be done. I think what happened last year probably hurt this organization in a weird way. Sometimes success, which I don't necessarily believe, but some people will say that success can hurt you down the road if you first come in. Look what happened with the New York Giants. The New York Giants, Brian Dable and Joe Shane came in the first year and they made the playoffs, and that completely wrecked any kind of plans they may have had with the quarterback that they probably wanted to bring in. They couldn't do that, and they re-signed Daniel Jones, and then they screwed the relationship with Saquon Barkley. So this is kind of very similar in a lot of ways. They made the playoffs the first year with David Stearns as the general manager, quote unquote, president of baseball operations, and Carlos Mendoza. And the first year they went to postseason, and they probably weren't planning on it, even though they said they were trying to, and they were trying to put a good team together. That happened, and then that kind of screwed up any kind of future plans that Stearns may have had for the team, to where he had to sort of re-sign Alonso. Maybe he didn't really want to, and that kind of pushed his team back. And then because of this team's history of being so inconsistent, being up and down, having hot months and then being cold, this team had a track record. And this also, I would mention, this team had been around since 2019. McNeil, Nimmo, Alonso, Diaz, those guys have been around since 2019 as a group. And they've gone through managers, general managers, ownership groups. Sometimes it doesn't work. And then many times you try to bring in new players, take players out, sometimes the group doesn't work. It's always about the group. It's always about that group dynamic. When you're hearing things like, well, one player is nothing about winning and playing hard and then going home, and the other one's about fashion, it's strange. And there's some tension there with the players. That's a distract. When there's tension with the players and it's not helping you on the field, you have to get rid of it. It's toxic. It's toxic to your organization. And that's why it's so important that the Mets, basically let go of some of these guys, move some of these guys. Now, Marcus Semien, he's an older player. We know that. But he's a culture guy. He's a guy that is about winning. He can rub a lot of people the wrong way with his winning attitude. I don't think he's as crazy as Tommy Pham was, but he's about winning, and he will push you. And that's kind of what the Mets need here to change the personality of this team. They're too nice here. That's the one thing we've noticed. And also say this too. All these guys were players brought in by the Wilpons. So they're nice guys. Nice guys finish last, as always. And Terry Collins understands that. Because he had a whole bunch of team of nice guys. But they were very talented. Especially on the pitching side. Well, let me know what you think about this video. And of course, please subscribe to the Baseball Hut 2. I'll see you later.